This time on KEI Fabrication.
Alright folks, one of the things that I thought was going to be important for going on the road in drag week is to have the ability to recharge electronic devices. Children. Hide all the women and children. All the grinding's done. Time to clean the garage. Well folks, I just came back from the scrapyard. So I ran up to the scrapyard. Well, we're up here at the junkyard. Well, we're back in the junkyard. Alright folks, one of the things that I thought was going to be important for going on the road in drag week is to have the ability to recharge electronic devices, cameras, and those sort of things. So my plan now is to throw in one of these power outlet supply ports. This is the dual port one that I picked up from my local CarQuest auto parts store, and I bought a ATO type fuse blocks holder so I can supply from my main power terminal distribution block to the fuse block, and then tap off of that to things like this power outlet thing. So we'll be able to recharge phones, we'll be able to recharge cameras, run the laptops and things like that off of this power port. When I put the Silverado dash in, I actually was forced to eliminate the factory power port because the dash covered up the area that the power port went. So right now I just have a hole in the dash that I'm going to 3D print a plug for and just kind of glue it in there to cover it up. So I'll show you that when I do that as well. So right now I'm going to get into my wiring, and as you have seen in previous videos, my wiring is kind of concealed behind that kick panel, and I can't angle the camera properly to get it in there. But back here is my main power distribution block right back there, and I have several terminals available to feed power to that fuse block, and then out of the fuse block, of course, we'll continue on to the accessories. Alright folks, I am in the process of putting in that multi-port fused terminal block, and I'm going to mount it to plastic inside, and there's no access to the back side, so I'm going to pop rivet this bracket in place. This is the cardboard version, cardboard aided design. I got it laid out. I drilled my holes first like I always instruct you folks to do. I'm about to cut it out on the bandsaw, and this will allow me to mount this using threaded fasteners to mount this to the plate, and then this will be mounted to the plastic underneath the truck. It's actually going on the heater fan box, and it's right next to my power distribution block, so it just makes sense to do it this way. So I'm going to cut this out. I'm actually going to put a couple of bends in it to space the terminal block off of the heater box a tiny bit to make room for the threads, for the nuts that's going to hold this on, and also keep the metal away from the terminals. So I'll show you how all that shakes out once it's done. So when you got really tight radiuses locked in here, sometimes if you relieve the back side of the blade, you can actually make the sharper cut more effectively. So if you've got a lot of material next to the blade, and if you relieve the back side of that material, it'll actually allow you to force the metal to deform on the side of the blade that you don't want. And so I'm going to tune this up on the belt sander, and I'm going to make the little bends on my make-believe press brake, and then I'm going to pop rivet this in place.
Alright folks, I've got the wiring completed for my auxiliary power ports, and I had temporarily hooked up my fans without a fuse, so now the fans are also on their individual circuits, one for the main engine cooling fan and the other for the automatic transmission cooler fan. So the supply comes from my distribution block, which is the big red terminal. For individual circuits, I ran 10 gauge wire up to the fuse block, and the output for the fans and the auxiliary power port are hooked up. And if we come over here to our auxiliary power port, I've got ground and power working good here, and ground and power working here. So be able to charge electronic devices now, phones. It's tucked out of the way, shouldn't bother anybody sitting in the passenger seat. Should all be good. And in just a minute I'll put my cover back on to hide all my power accessories and fuses and relays, and this job will be finished. Alright, there we go. The only thing visible from the passenger seat is those three little power supply wires that run down and underneath. It's possible I can re-loom those so they're invisible, but I'm running short on time, so I'm going to leave them like that for now. And when you're sitting in the passenger seat, even with your legs rested, the power distribution is pretty far away from your legs, so the power terminals to supply the accessories can run over here, and we can accommodate all kinds of things. One of the things I have to do before I go to the track for some of the other events is I'm going to mount a fire extinguisher here. I think the drift and the road course things want a fire extinguisher within the driver's reach. So I'm going to put one right here. It still will be out of the way of the person in the passenger seat. There's 8 inches of room here. I'm going to put a 10-pound, no, what is it? A 4-pound fire extinguisher right here for the automotive and marine, with the heavy-duty bracket on it, and the gauge and everything will be right about here. So that should do it. We'll once I get one, I'm going to install it, and I'll show you how it looks when it's done. I don't know if I ever showed you folks this or not, but this was a cup holder slash console that I designed on SolidWorks and 3D printed on a MakerBot 5th generation 3D printer. And it's kind of funny because it is exactly the size of the maximum the 3D printer would allow. So it's kind of squished in here. The seat holds it in, and it has the contour for the transmission tunnel, and it's come in quite handy for everything. That's and the cup holder works perfectly. So for drag week, maybe I'll have to print one that holds 2 cups, so my co-pilot can enjoy a beverage as well. Next time on KEI Fabrication.
Alright folks, got the temperature sensor installed.